My Generation with Ugly Phil celebrates rock's greatest hits and the big news and events of this week. All details on the My Generation Facebook page. It's time to catch up.
It's My Generation of Ugly Phil. Our special guest is the voice and master songsmith of the massive 70s band Supertramp. Please welcome Roger Hodgson. Roger, great to talk to you, mate. I loved you as a kid. I love you now. The 40th anniversary of Breakfast in America, one of the first records I bought, in fact. And, you know, looking back now at my youth, and I'm sure you have occasions like this as well, where you look back and go, where the hell did those 40 years go?
It's amazing how quick time flies in life. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I think what really rams at home is that I'm singing, you know, Give a Little Bit and Logical Song and Take the Long Way Home Today, and they don't feel like old songs. They feel like they're still fresh and current and relevant, and I love them.
How's your voice these days when you play live? Because I often think, because this is my livelihood, I wonder how much my voice will change over the years and how much that will affect how I can, you know, deliver and things like that. Have you noticed anything?
Every tour comes up, I go, I wonder if it's going to work, and it seems to get better. It's amazing.
Wow.
I mean, actually, this tour, we just got back from New Zealand, and my voice was hitting those notes as easier than ever. And I'm good in my heart. That's always what I always say. If my heart's good, then my voice sounds great.
And the thing about Supertramp songs is, of course, you can sing them from the heart as well, because there's so much emotion. In fact, as the years have gone by, have you ever revisited a song while you're playing it on stage even and thought to yourself, bloody hell, this is a good song?
Well, often. Often. I mean, I especially when I haven't sung them for a few months, you know, I come back and I sing them, and it's like listening to them for the first time. And I managed to express a lot of very personal, vulnerable, beautiful things that still, you know, resonate with me.
Roger, the back catalogue of mega hits, songs that resonate with the audience and, of course, with you.
Music was really, that was my refuge. That was where I went to express all the confusion and questions and joy and pain and longing for love, and et cetera, that I was feeling. And I have felt through my life. And I'm very fortunate to have had that outlet to express what's going on inside. I'm no different to most people, so a lot of other people have those feelings or emotions at some point. So in a way, I was a voice for a lot of other people, and I think that's the amazing connection that I have and these songs have with so many people. I think that's the beauty of music, you know, especially when it is personal. I mean, I think John Lennon taught me that. I mean, he really put his soul and heart on his sleeve, and I don't know whether that inspired me or whether it just happened naturally. I think it happened naturally more because I picked up my first guitar when I was 12, and suddenly I was in English boarding school, and suddenly I had a friend that I could turn to at any moment and just express all the questions I had going on inside. So, yeah, I'm very blessed to have had music to have got it out, and most people don't have an outlet. So it's amazing to be a voice for so many people in so many ways.
You know, the 40th anniversary of Breakfast in America, when you look back at these songs, they're incredible. At the time, though, when you were in the studio, did you realize how good this album actually was?
Yeah, I did have a sense, when I was putting the combination of songs together, Rick is the other writer, Rick Davis, and he and I were writing totally separately at that point. So he had 5 or 6 songs, and I just kind of had to match them. Okay, which of my songs, and I always had a huge backlog, which songs of mine would fit with the ones he's written. So I put together this collection of songs, and that just felt like, wow, this is a strong collection. It's fun, it's upbeat, it still has some depth. And for example, Breakfast in America, I'd written that song 12 years prior, when I was 18 or 19.
Wow.
It was a song that wouldn't have worked on Crime of the Century or Crisis What Crisis or even in the Quietest Moments. But suddenly, here was a collection of songs that, hey, I think it'll work here. And so, that was one decision, for example. But yes, in the studio, the album took 8 months. I was sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor. These babies had to come out right. And this was pre-computer. It all had to be done manually, and the mixing is kind of like, you get all the ingredients together for a meal, and then they've all got to be put in and mixed in the right proportions and everything. And that was how it was with songs back then. And I just couldn't leave it until every song really came out the way I heard them. And I think we achieved a pretty high level of success there.
Singer, songwriter, and all-round lovely gent, Roger Hodgson from Supertramp is our special guest co-host this week. And this week marks the 40th anniversary of that awesome album, Breakfast in America, released released on March 29, 1979, and the album held the top spot for 6 weeks, achieving gold status ahead of people like Rod Stewart, the Bee Gees and ELO at the time. It sold 20 million copies worldwide and cemented Supertramp as the radio staple as they are today. And hey, Roger, didn't you win a Grammy Award for the album cover for this album too?
I believe so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Your album covers were always really elaborate. You know, you mentioned Crime of the Century and Crisis, What Crisis? I mean, there's a relevant album cover now. You know, here's a guy sunning himself in a deck chair in the middle of an industrial wasteland. That's just as appropriate now, you know.
I know. You know, back then, I mean, that was as much fun thinking the album cover as the album. You know, it was a piece of art. I mean, unfortunately with CDs, it kind of lessened, but it was a lot of fun coming up with the album cover. And we never really put our faces on the artwork because the artwork seemed like it, you know, we knew it needed to represent at least a part of what the music was about. And so actually the record company came and they suggested a very sexy young waitress on the front. And we said, that's not us.
No, it wouldn't have worked if you hadn't had Betty on the cover. I don't know if Betty was her name, but for me, she'll always be Betty.
Libby.
Oh, there you go. Okay. And, you know, you talk about album covers in this day and age of, you know, digital distribution. You know, some people don't even know what an album cover is, so they wouldn't have the appreciation of that and, you know, liner notes, sleeve notes, that type of thing.
Well, you know, it's interesting, the whole album recurrence. You know, I think a lot of young people are realizing, hey, we missed out that era, and that's why there's such a recurrence of album sales. But it was a magical time. I mean, that piece of vinyl with that cover, that was a piece of art that you just fondled and looked at and read. And, you know, it gave you all that real estate to write lyrics on and everything else. So it's interesting that there's such a recurrence of that.
It's clear that your heart is in the music too. You can see that on stage, the way you play it. You bring the music to life, I think.
It's about rediscovering and living from the heart again, which is, I think that's what it's about. Kids live from the heart, or most young kids. If you can see them in their faces. They're not trying to do anything except just to have the most joy they can in the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, that was also what Logical Song wrote about. I mean, my education in England just left me very confused with so many questions. And so I'm not like no one else. I've been trying to rediscover that wonder that you have as a young kid.
I guess people like me will be able to also, you know, get that experience when we go and see you live, because apart from the solo stuff that you're doing, obviously you're doing Supertramp songs as well, which have brought so much joy to people. And I imagine if you get the opportunity to talk to fans, you get to hear all kinds of stories too.
It's amazing. I mean, I just feel very blessed that I've had a gift and I had an ability to express some of the stuff that's been going on in my life, in my heart, and my questions, and that have helped others. I mean, as you say, you mentioned Hide in Your Shell. There have been so many people who've come up and said, my God, that song helped me so much. I didn't feel so alone. I felt I wasn't going crazy. And even, you know, people who said, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for this song or that song. Lord, Is It Mine is another one that have really comforted people. And I know for myself, you know, when I've gone through tough times, there have been songs, other people's songs often, that have really helped me. But I think that's the gift of music. Music can really be such a comfort and such a friend to us when we're going through tough times.
My Generation, the Ugly Phil, and our special guest co-host this week has been Roger Hodgson as we celebrate the 40th anniversary of Supertramp's milestone album, Breakfast in America. Take the Long Way Home. Gee, that was an interesting song for me. I remember being a lonely kid at 15, listening to that album in my bedroom, crying. You know, that song in particular, Roger, really resonates with me.
I think that's the magic of music. Music and smell, actually. Those are the two things that really hold our memories like almost nothing else. But music, it's amazing for me to look out and see people crying or see people hugging each other or keep seeing their eyes rolling up in their heads or getting goosebumps. I mean, music really can do that. And that's kind of what keeps me going, to tell the truth, is that I can give people that experience. And especially in this crazy world. I mean, life is not getting any easier.
No.
And people don't listen to albums anymore. It's funny. People listen to basically track song by song. So in concert, that's when I can take people, I have their attention for 2 hours, and I can take them on a real rich, emotional, and even spiritual journey. And then, you know, uplift them and remind them of all these times in their life when these songs were maybe going on for them and spoke to them. And it's an amazing thing to be able to give people.
And it's wonderful that people are going back and buying vinyl now too, so that people can go back and experience the music the way it was written and the way it was meant to be heard. And again, with, the aesthetics of actually being able to hold the album and, experience it as a whole thing, rather than just some digitized thing that nobody actually owns. That there isn't even a thing, to be honest. Roger, it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. As a childhood fan through to now, you've made my life so much richer with your music. So thank you so much.
All right. That was a fun way to wake up. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. See you soon. Bye-bye.
All right, Phil. Bye-bye.
My Generation with Ugly Phil. Tune in for rock's greatest hits and the big news and events of this week. Details on the My Generation Facebook page.